It was a cold winter evening in Pine Lake, a small town nestled in the forests of northern Minnesota. Snow fell quietly, covering the streets and houses in a white shroud. In one of the homes along Main Street, the lights stayed on later than usual. Helen Taylor, a community nurse, sat at her kitchen table, staring at the empty plate across from her. Her daughter, Emily, hadn't come home for dinner again. The next morning, Helen showed up for work as usual, smiling, helpful, perfect. No one asked about Emily. No one knew she had vanished without a trace 2 days earlier. This is a story about maternal love that became a prison, about a daughter who tried to break free, and a mother who couldn't let go. It happened in 2023 in a small American town where everyone knows each other, but not everyone knows the truth. Emily Taylor was 24. She lived with her mother in a modest 2-story home on Forest Lane in Pine Lake and worked as a freelance graphic designer, mostly remote. On the surface, everything looked normal. Emily was a good daughter, Helen, a caring mother. But those who knew them more closely saw another reality. Emily never went out alone. She always had to tell her mother where she was going and when she'd be back. Helen controlled her phone, her messages, even her friendships. Any attempt to become independent was met with intense resistance and manipulation. Madison Porter, Emily's childhood best friend, lived in Duluth. Despite the distance, she kept in close touch. She was the first to notice something was seriously wrong. Madison would later recall how Emily always spoke in a whisper, like she was afraid someone might hear her. Sometimes she'd just hang up mid-conversation and text later that her mom came upstairs. It was disturbing. Their last conversation took place on the evening of January 16, 2023. Emily was even quieter than usual, her voice barely audible. She told Madison she thought she was finally going to do it, move to Chicago. She had gotten a job at a small creative agency and couldn't live like this anymore. This wasn't life, she whispered. In the background, a TV murmured, and footsteps echoed on wooden stairs. Emily went silent. Then the line went dead. For the next 2 days, Madison tried calling her. Each time she got the same message, the phone was turned off or out of range. That was unusual. Emily never turned off her phone, not even at night. On Wednesday, January 18th, Madison called Helen directly. She hoped to hear Emily in the background, or at least some sign that everything was okay. Helen told her that Emily had gone to visit her aunt in Grand Rapids for a few days. She needed a little break, Helen explained. Young women sometimes just need space. Helen's voice was calm, too calm for a mother whose daughter had suddenly left without notice. When Madison asked about Emily's phone being off, Helen said she had left it at home, wanting to disconnect for a while. All these gadgets sometimes do more harm than good, she reasoned. Madison knew that couldn't be true. Emily was a freelancer. Her phone was vital to her work. She would never leave it behind. Madison asked when Emily was coming back, and Helen said she would call when she was ready. She didn't want to disturb her peace. Every word Helen spoke sounded rehearsed. Madison felt it in her gut. Something was terribly wrong. By Friday, January 20th, she couldn't take it anymore. She got in her car and drove the 2 hours to Pine Lake. Every passing mile only intensified her unease. The Taylor's house at 214 Forest Lane looked perfectly ordinary from the outside. A red brick 2-story with a tidy front yard and a white picket fence. The curtains were drawn. Helen's SUV was in the driveway. Nothing appeared out of place. Helen opened the door after the first knock, as if she had been waiting. She was dressed neatly and wore light makeup, odd for a Saturday morning at home. Helen repeated that Emily wasn't there, but Madison insisted she just wanted to check. Maybe Emily had left a note or something. She was really worried. Helen hesitated but eventually let her in. The house was spotless. It smelled faintly of disinfectant. Every surface gleamed, as if someone had spent hours scrubbing. Helen explained that Emily had been unpredictable lately, with all these big plans, moving to Chicago, starting over. She didn't understand how hard the world really was. Madison scanned the familiar house. Everything was in its place, but something was missing. any sign of Emily. Her favorite coffee mug with the words, "Designers do it in layers," wasn't on the kitchen shelf. Her red winter coat wasn't hanging by the door. Her backpack was nowhere in sight. When Madison asked about Emily's things, her coat, her laptop bag, Helen froze for a split second. Something cold flickered in her eyes. She explained that Emily had taken what she needed and she had packed away the rest. She couldn't stand clutter. A home should be clean and orderly. A chill ran down Madison's spine. Emily never went anywhere without her MacBook, and it wasn't on her desk, clearly visible through the open door of her bedroom. Madison asked if she could look in Emily's room. Maybe she had left something. A note, anything. Helen apologized, saying she was organizing things in there. Maybe another time. Her voice shifted subtly, firmer now, less accommodating. Madison realized she was being shown the door. She asked Helen to at least tell Emily that she had called, that she was worried. Helen assured her she would let Emily know as soon as she reached out. Helen politely but firmly led Madison out. As the car pulled away, Helen remained at the window, watching the empty street in silence. That evening, Madison went to the Duluth Police Department. She knew this might be the only chance to act before it was too late. Sergeant Peter Reynolds, a 37-year-old officer with more than a decade on the force, took the report with practiced calm. An adult woman gone missing. It happened all the time, especially in January, when people often made big decisions after the holidays. But the longer he listened, the more his instincts told him something was off. The obsessive control, the inconsistencies, the complete disappearance of Emily's personal belongings. This didn't feel like a voluntary trip. Madison described Emily's relationship with her mother as toxic, controlling, obsessive. She believed Helen never saw Emily as her daughter, but more like a possession. And that was when the case finally began. Detective Stephen Reynolds drove down to Pine Lake on January 21st to speak with Helen Taylor in person. He wanted to see her reactions firsthand, to assess the credibility of her statements. Helen welcomed the detective into her home with grace and calm. She was dressed neatly, makeup done, as if preparing for a special occasion, not a conversation about her missing daughter. She apologized that he had to trouble himself over this. Emily did this a lot, she explained. Leaves without saying a word, comes back when she gets bored. That was just her nature. She had always been irresponsible. When Detective Reynolds asked if her daughter often took off without notice, Helen confirmed this, especially when things got tough. She runs from her problems, thinks things will be better somewhere else, Helen said. Helen explained that Emily had been dealing with problems recently. She kept talking about Chicago, some job opportunity, but it was unrealistic. Emily didn't have the experience to work in a big firm. Helen had tried to explain that to her, but she wouldn't listen. Regarding conflicts at work or in relationships, Helen said Emily wasn't seeing anyone. She had always been careful to make sure she didn't get involved with the wrong kind of people. Young girls are naive these days, easy to manipulate, she reasoned. Detective Reynolds wrote everything down, watching Helen's face closely. There was something disturbing in the way she spoke about her daughter, as if she were a child, not a grown woman. When he asked to see Emily's room, Helen agreed readily. The room looked like a hotel space, sterile, spotless, and completely impersonal. The bed was perfectly made, the desk wiped to a shine. The only personal items were a few books on the shelf and a framed photo of Emily and her mother on the dresser. Detective Reynolds asked about Emily's personal things, clothes, makeup, documents. Helen said she had taken them with her. Like she had said, Emily always packs like she's going away for a month, even if it's just for the weekend. The detective opened the closet. It was completely empty. Even the hangers were gone. When he commented on this being unusual for a short trip, Helen explained that Emily had her whims. She liked to change her wardrobe often. Besides, she had said something about shopping for new clothes in Illinois. The detective examined the room more closely. It lacked the normal signs of daily life, no coffee cup rings on the desk, No signs that someone had lived or worked there. The room had clearly been deep cleaned. When he asked about Emily's laptop, since she worked remotely, Helen said she had taken it, mentioning she might need to finish some things. But Detective Reynolds noticed something Helen likely hadn't. Faint marks where cords had lain, subtle outlines in the dust where electronics had been. Someone had removed the equipment hastily, but hadn't erased every trace. The detective asked for the phone number of Emily's aunt in Illinois, wanting to confirm that Emily had made it there safely. Helen froze for just a moment, then explained that her aunt didn't have a phone. She was old-fashioned, didn't like technology, lived out on a farm outside Elgin. When he asked for an address so they could send a patrol to check, Helen said she didn't remember it exactly. Emily had figured it out herself. She had always been independent like that. Her answers were becoming increasingly evasive. Detective Reynolds decided to end the conversation for now, but he planned to return with a warrant. On January 22nd, Detective Reynolds came back with a search warrant. This time he wasn't alone. 2 officers and a crime scene technician accompanied him. He explained to Helen that a search of the property was standard procedure in missing persons cases. They just wanted to make sure they hadn't missed anything. Helen maintained a calm demeanor, but her hands trembled slightly as she signed the paperwork. The main part of the house yielded nothing. Everything was spotless, filled with the sharp scent of cleaning products. It wasn't until the officers went down into the basement that they found what they were looking for. Behind a false wall made of drywall, they discovered a small hidden room. Inside were Emily's belongings, neatly folded clothes, her laptop, phone, documents, and something else, a blood-stained blue hoodie, the same one Emily had worn in a Facebook photo. Helen stood upstairs watching silently as the police carried out the evidence. Her face was serene, almost indifferent, as if she were watching a television drama. When Detective Reynolds asked if she had anything to say in her defense, Helen looked at him with a strange smile, almost satisfied that the truth had finally come out. She admitted that Emily had tried to leave her, but she couldn't let her go. Emily was her daughter, her possession. She had given her whole life to her. When asked what happened to Emily, Helen said she was where she belonged, under her care forever, where no one could hurt her, use her, or deceive her. During the interrogation, Helen shared her version of events, a story of years of control, fear of abandonment, and the firm belief that only she knew what was best for Emily. She explained that Emily was everything she had. When Emily's father died in a car crash in 2008, it was just the 2 of them. She had to protect her from the world, from people, from herself. Emily was naive, too trusting. Anyone could have taken advantage of her. When Detective Reynolds pointed out that Emily was an adult with the right to make her own choices, Helen insisted she didn't know how to make good decisions. She kept wanting to be independent, but she didn't understand how cruel the world is. Helen had raised her, given up everything for her. She couldn't let it all be wasted. When asked where Emily's body was, Helen looked at the detective with that same unsettling calm. She said it was in a place no one would find her, where they would be together forever, where Emily would be safe. She never revealed that location. Despite intensive searches through the woods surrounding Pine Lake, along the shores of the lake, and even thorough examinations of the property around the house, Emily's body was never found. Court-appointed psychiatrists determined that Helen Taylor suffered from severe narcissistic personality disorder with psychopathic traits. Her obsessive love for her daughter had turned into a pathological need for control, which ultimately led to tragedy. The psychiatric report noted that the patient demonstrated a complete lack of empathy and failed to recognize the autonomy of another person. In her value system, her daughter was an object, not a person. She was incapable of understanding that her actions constituted a crime. During the trial, which took place from March to May 2023, shocking details about Emily's life came to light. Witness testimony revealed a long-standing pattern of psychological abuse that had gone on for years. Neighbors described strange noises coming from the Taylor residence in the weeks before Emily disappeared, screams that suddenly stopped, fires being lit in the yard late at night, even in freezing temperatures. Mrs. Patterson, the neighbor across the street, testified that sometimes they saw Emily at the window. She looked like a ghost, pale, sad. But whenever they asked Helen about her, she would say everything was fine, that Emily was just tired from work. Madison testified through tears about their final conversations. She told the court that Emily had said she felt like a prisoner in her own home. Her mom checked every text, every phone call. She monitored her bank account, read her private messages. Madison had been scared something might happen, but she never imagined it would go this far. The investigation revealed that Emily had tried for years to free herself from her mother's control. She had a secret bank account where she saved money for a move. She was in contact with employment agencies in Chicago, planning her escape. But each time, Helen discovered her plans and stopped them. Helen testified that she had found chats on Emily's laptop about Chicago, about work, apartments. She had to monitor it, she insisted. Those were bad plans. Someone would have taken advantage of her. She did it for her own good, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. On May 27, 2023, Helen Taylor was sentenced to life in prison for premeditated murder and concealment of a body. The sentence was final. She did not appeal. As the verdict was read, she sat quietly, as if the case didn't concern her. To this day, she has not revealed where she hid her daughter's body. In Pine Lake, the house at 214 Forest Lane now stands empty. Residents avoid it, especially children, who have created a local legend about the ghost of a young woman. They say that some evenings, a pale figure can be seen in the upstairs window, as if still trying to escape that place. Madison hasn't given up. She regularly organizes search parties, enlisting volunteers and local authorities. She refuses to let go of the hope that she will one day find her friend and give her a proper burial. Emily deserves peace, Madison says. She never knew freedom in life, at least now she should have it in death. In November 2023, the Emily's Light Foundation was established, an organization dedicated to helping women affected by domestic abuse. Madison runs it herself, devoting her life to ensuring that her friend's story won't be forgotten. She believes that Emily couldn't free herself, but maybe she can help others break free. That's the only way she can help her now. If Emily's death saves even one life, then it has meaning. The story of Emily Taylor is a reminder of how thin the line can be between love and obsession, that sometimes the worst prisons are built by those who claim to love us. For years, Helen Taylor portrayed herself as the perfect mother. The community respected her, admired her devotion. A registered nurse who spent her life helping others, caring for the sick, a model citizen. No one saw the dark side of their relationship. No one heard Emily's quiet cries for help. The questions remain. Could this have been prevented? Could someone have recognized the warning signs earlier? These questions continue to haunt the residents of Pine Lake, and anyone who has heard this story. Psychologists say Helen may never truly believe she did anything wrong. In her mind, she is still a loving mother who protected her daughter from a cruel world. Her mental illness is so deep, she cannot comprehend another person's perspective. Forensic psychologist Dr. Anna Collins explains that this makes the story so terrifying. Helen genuinely believed she was acting out of love. To her, Emily was property, not an independent person with her own right to choose. Emily Taylor was 24. She was smart, talented, and full of dreams. She had favorite books and movies. She dreamed of traveling, of one day having a place of her own, maybe a family. She wanted to live. She wanted to be free. Her greatest dream was to move to Chicago and start over. She talked about it often with Madison. She was excited about the future and the opportunities it could bring. That dream never came true. Today, as we pass by families who seem perfect, it's worth pausing and asking, is everything really as it seems? Could there be fear behind the smile? Could concern actually be control? Emily tried to ask for help, subtly, quietly, because she didn't know how else. She had been raised to believe that mothers always know best, that family is everything, that loyalty is sacred. That loyalty cost her her life. We don't know where her body lies. Helen took that secret behind the prison walls, where she is serving a life sentence. But Emily is not forgotten. Her story became a warning, a voice for others trapped in silence, a reminder that domestic abuse wears many faces, and the most dangerous one may be hidden behind love and care. This story also shows how appearances can deceive. Helen Taylor was a respected community member. She worked in a hospital, helped others, was a role model. No one suspected the nightmare behind the facade. Perhaps that's exactly why no one did. Maybe our need to believe in love, in goodness, makes us blind to truths that are too horrifying to accept. Emily Taylor died in the shadow of her mother, in the shadow of a love that turned into obsession, in the shadow of care that became a prison. Her voice was silenced forever. But we can still hear her, if we choose to. We can remember her story and stay alert to the signs that someone around us may need help. Because sometimes silence is the loudest cry for help. We live in a world where domestic violence is still taboo, where victims are afraid to ask for help, and witnesses prefer to look away. Emily's story is not unique. It's one of thousands happening behind closed doors in homes that seem normal from the outside. Abuse isn't always physical. It often starts with control, isolation, and emotional manipulation. Just like it did with Emily, warning signs include excessive control over someone's life, isolation from friends and family, checking phones and computers, monitoring finances, constant criticism, and humiliation. These were all part of Emily's daily life, things her friend noticed but didn't know how to respond to. Emily Taylor's case is not just a true crime mystery, it's a lesson in noticing those who suffer in silence. If you notice someone in your life might need help, don't be afraid to act. Sometimes one call, one question, one conversation at the right moment can save a life.